Okay, tonight we're thrilled to welcome Dr. Sophia Khan. She is the founder of KC for Refugees organization in the Kansas City area. She's a doctor of internal medicine in Kansas City and was the 2016 awarded the 2016 Peace Award from Crescent Peace Society and the 2017 United Nations Association of Kansas City World Citizen of the Year. And she's also a Johnson County resident. So we're thrilled to welcome her tonight. Everybody, please welcome Dr. Khan.
Thank you. So I am thrilled to be part of your evening today, and people starting to get a little interest back into our refugees that unfortunately the crisis never ended, whether we were in COVID or not in COVID. But I'm glad that people are starting to think beyond their own issues, you know, that we all had during COVID about this very deserving population. So before I go, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a Kansas City, greater Kansas City area resident for over 25 years, moved here from New York after I finished my residency, and my husband got his residency at UMKC, and we were newlyweds, and I'm getting ready to actually get my first daughter married. So now, you know, all my kids are born here. I have 5 girls. And I work full-time in different hospitals here in Kansas City area. So I would like to give you guys a little bit of background first about the refugee program of the United States, starting from a bigger picture of who these refugees are, and then focusing slowly into where does the United States stands. So I'm going to ask Andrew to let me share the screen, so I can share some of the things that I have up here that I would like to.
And you're sharing now, so you're good to go, Dr. Khan.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out how do I see all my tabs up here. Can you help me with that?
I see all your tabs, so you should just be able to click on them, and then it should take you right to that website.
There's a Zoom tab up here. I don't know if I can move that tab that's kind of covering everything.
Can you drag your internet window down a little bit?
Just the window part? I'm sorry, guys. I'm just really bad with technology. Okay, I think it pushed up. So now I can see. Okay. I'm going to start with, here, let's see the fact sheet about the refugees. So first, I would like to give you a definition of who refugees are. A refugee is actually a person who has to basically leave their country because of certain circumstances. So you cannot be called a refugee when you're within your own country. Those are internally displaced people. So a refugee is a person who is outside their country, nationality, in the country of their origin, and they are unable or unwilling to return to the country because they have a fear of being persecuted. This persecution could be based on their race, their religion, their nationality, their social group, their political opinion, any of these reasons. And according to the United Nations, that's when a person becomes a refugee. So on their own accord, they have to leave the country of origin. And only after they come out do they get this title of being a refugee. The United States basically started taking refugees. They have always taken refugees from the beginning, but this current Refugee Act was passed in 1980. So I'm going to try and take you to take you guys to one of my Google slide here that kind of defines this history of refugee, where it started in the United States. So the Congress enacted the first refugee legislation in 1948, following the admission of more than 250,000 displaced Europeans. So a lot of these European people that are here in this country, they all came as refugees. So you will hear the stories of their families have shared with them of their grandparents or someone who came here as refugees. The legislation provided for the admission of an additional 400,000, again, displaced Europeans. So after they passed the legislation in 1948, another 400,000 Europeans came. So these laws provided for admission of persons fleeing the communist regimes, largely from Hungary, Poland, Yugoslavia, Korea, China, and in the 1960s, the Cubans fleeing Fidel Castro also arrived en masse. Most of these waves of refugees were assisted by private, ethnic, and religious organizations in the United States. So there was a public-private kind of role going on right now. Today is a little different than what was going on then. Historically, the total number of refugees coming to the United States has really fluctuated, and I think this graph will give you a little bit idea. Actually, if you go to this latest fact sheet, you'll see that so there are two numbers. One is the ceiling number, the blue graph you see, which is the number that the president approves and says this year this many will come, but this lighter color at the bottom is actually the total number that actually ends up coming. You'll see right here a huge drop in 2017 from the numbers that were given and actual number of refugees that arrived. So who determines the number of refugees coming to the United States? The president. The president is given that authority, but he's supposed to do that in consultation with the Congress. So it depends on if the president will take counsel from the Congress or not. What is the refugee limit of this year? It was for 2021, it was decided basically in October of 2020, what number of refugees. The fiscal year ends on September 30th. And I'll give you a little idea on what numbers were there. Although there are 26 million refugees worldwide that are needing to be resettled, a very small fraction of those 26 million will actually end up getting, less than 1% will end up getting resettled in any other country. So starting from 2016, which was the last year of President Obama's administration, 85,000 was the number of refugees that were supposed to. So that was the ceiling. And I believe close to that ceiling did arrive in 2016. The very next year, in 2017, the first year of President Trump's administration, he slashed the number down to 54. Subsequent year, 45,000. Then the cap was 30,000. And for this year, the cap was 18,000. The ceiling proposed for the coming year was 15,000, but the number of total refugees that have arrived in 2021 is less than 2,000. Because of that, partly it is because of the COVID. So this graph gives you a little bit better picture of what's been going on since say 1980 all the way to 2021. So every year in the past 4 years of this administration, a record has been broken of the least number of refugees ever admitted in the United States. You see these numbers going down. Yes, there is a little dip here. You see this was around the September 11th when temporarily the number was slashed down, but then you see it promptly came back up. Refugee resettlement has historically been a bipartisan issue because it's a humanitarian issue, and both parties in general have supported because it's part of what we do as Americans. So where are these refugees coming from? They're coming from 60 different countries around the globe. In the 2018, after President Trump put a ban on Muslim refugees and refugees coming from Somalia and Syria, which were the largest population of refugees of the world, when they were banned from coming, even if it lasted only a short period of time, it did have a strong impact on the total number of refugees coming from certain parts of the world. And when you look at the 2018 numbers, you'll see the four top countries from where US accepted refugees was Congo, Burma, Ukraine, and Bhutan. Here, this graph also gives you an idea of the 2018 year, where the refugees have been coming from. Again, Congo is the largest number, then Burma, Ukraine, Bhutan, and smaller numbers from these countries. So where do these refugees resettle? Again, this graph will give you an idea. Largest number goes to Texas. Why? Because Texas is big. It has a lot of farm and those kind of industries which require people, and it's easy to resettle and get them jobs a lot of that will always depend on where they get jobs easily. Is the state of Washington, Ohio, California, New York. We're not, Kansas or Missouri is definitely not on the top right there. And this is again from the 2018 numbers, and you see these are small numbers. We used to, last year, I remember working with the refugee in 2016, when we started our organization, we had over 777 coming just to Kansas City. And these dismal numbers are of the top states currently. So who are these refugees? They come under 3 categories. One is the largest category of people are the ones that have been screened by the United Nations under the UNHCR program. But there are 2 other programs. One is the family reunification program. So if there's a refugee family already here, they can bring a brother or a sister or a child that was left behind. And also the 3rd category would be people who helped the US government during their wars in different parts of the world. And those, a lot of those, I personally know in Kansas City were under the Iraq mission. So when the Iraq war happened, the people that helped them, government gave them that, hey, we will give you, refugee status and come over here. How long does it take to screen a refugee? Usually 2 years, average around there. But I definitely know refugees who tell me that their screening process took 11 years, 12 years, sometimes even longer from when they applied and their paperwork happened. What kind of screening is it? There's several rounds of screening that goes on. First, the UNHCR will do their own screening process, and their initial application is presented to the United States, and the United States' own refugee admission program will start their own screening. It's 45 times easier to get accepted into Harvard than to get accepted in the United States as a refugee. So just to give an idea how difficult this process is. So initial screening done by UNHCR, where they collect their, biographic data, other information to present to the United States. And then their officers from United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, Department of Homeland Security, FBI, CIA, and other, they do screening through all these places. Then an in-person interview. So if it's a family of 2 parents, like mother, father, and 9 kids, even if it's a 5-year-old kid, each and every individual will go separately into the room and be interviewed, and their stories have to match. And if there's, we used to play this game as kids, you sit in a circle and tell a story in a person's ear, and then the last person has to narrate the story. We know how everyone's perspective of the same story could be different, but if they find discrepancies, those families' applications are dropped right there. So it's very difficult to go through this process. And once these interviews are completed, and if they are accepted, they go through health screening. And then they screen them for contagious diseases. If there are certain contagious diseases, tuberculosis, syphilis, HIV, and other diseases, if they have, they get excluded again. Once they go through this screening, if they still approve, and then they say, yeah, you can come, then they go through some cultural orientation. Before they can arrive here, we need to know who's going to be taking care of the family that's arriving, right? So there are 2 parts to it. How will they even pay for their tickets? They don't get free ride here. They do not get the free ride. They get, the United States will connect them to an agency who will give them a loan to buy their international tickets. And as soon as they come here, a few months after that, they'll start getting their bill. So the first thing these refugees get is a big loan of their international trip on a family that has nothing. And then they will be expected to pay this back. When they come here, that's when the 9 agencies, voluntary agencies, their volunteers are spread out around the world, and they have their offices in Washington, D.C., and they work very closely with the United States government. They have their affiliates all over America, and Greater Kansas City has 3 affiliates here: Catholic Charities, Delalam, and Jewish Vocational Services. We know that Catholic Charities is working on the Kansas side in the Wyandotte County area. And then in the Kansas City, Missouri area, we have Jewish Vocational Services and Delalam. Those within the Greater Kansas City, those are the agencies that are bringing in refugees. So these agencies, what they will do is, what do the refugee settlement agencies do? They will assist the refugees after they arrive in the United States. So when the screening is done and everything, their process will start at the airport. Before they arrive at the airport, they are required. So they're given a checklist of things to do. And before arrival, they are supposed to get a house ready for them. When I say get a house ready, which means they talk to the landlord, the house has to be able to accommodate the number of people. They put basic furniture there so a person can come and sit on a chair, have a small table, 3 or 4 chairs, maybe a small couch if they're lucky, a few dishes, pots and pans to get started with the cooking. They have a bed, so they have a frame, they have mattress on top of it and some bed sheets to go with it. A pillow has to be provided, and fresh food has to be available on their kitchen counter to eat on the day they arrive from the airport. So even that is part of the whole deal, and that has to be ethnically appropriate food. So if they are from Congo, you make sure it's Congolese food. Okay, so these beautiful things that the US government requires them to do, I think makes a big difference. So they get them picked up at the airport, they come home, the house is ready with basic furnishing appliances, climate appropriate clothing is also, so if they have whatever age kids, gender kids they have, their shoes, initial backpack, few clothing items for them, socks, underwears, everything is ready, because chances are they'll come empty-handed. Now they won't be bringing anything with them. And then once they come, then these agencies have to help them apply for a social security card, register their kids in school, learn how to access the shopping. So bus passes, how to get the bus, how to go buy groceries, that even teach them. That's how the grocery work. Social worker will take them and show how to pay, how to take a card. You know, these are people who, some of them could have been born and be in refugee camps for generations. They've never been to a grocery store. So to teach them, you know, how to do these things, arranging their initial medical appointments. Some of these refugees, the reason they are accepted is because they have very severe health problems. So making sure that they get the refills on their medicine, they get their first physical, and then connecting them with the social and language services. So they start immediately enroll in ESL classes. And they also, so it's if you work with these agencies, which I do as my nonprofit, they have a lot of multilingual people who speak languages. And before they decide which city a refugee, say, if I was a refugee family coming in, how do they decide which city to send me to? Unless I have a family member living in a city, which is different, which is reunification. If not, like the Syrians, when they started arriving in 2015 and 16, they didn't have family anywhere. This was the first batch of Syrians coming. It is determined by where is their language support. Very important, very important. Language support, where there's a city where someone speaks. So for Syrians, it was simpler Arabic. A lot of people speak Arabic. For Congolese, French. A lot of people speak French. But for some of the Burmese and some of the more specialized languages of Africa, you have to make sure that there's already an existing community there which speak their languages, because without the language, you will not be able to help this family get settled. So that's the reason why you will see populations of certain types of refugees in certain cities. So for example, you'll see a lot of Rohingya Burmese in Scottsdale, Arizona area. I know nonprofits there run by some friends who help largely either Syrians, large amount of Syrians, and Rohingya. We don't have a whole lot of Rohingya in the Kansas City area. We do have Congolese and Somalis and 37 or 38 Syrian families. Then you will see certain populations mostly going to Texas. So even if their application ends up coming to the Kansas City office, they'll say, hey, we don't have language support, but we do know that that city, that particular city in Texas or California, why don't you send this person there? So just an example about how we go about doing this. Who funds this? I told you that the original funding of the ticket is just a loan. It's called the RNP program that does a one-time, payment to them. Also, the refugee reception and placement program gives them a one-time lump sum money. To give you an example, how much that is, if there was a family with 3 kids, so they will be considered 5 refugees. They will get the amount allocated to one refugee, which is anywhere from $900 to $1,000 one time. It'll be multiplied by 5. if there's 5 family members. If it's a single person coming, then it'll be just $1,000. And what do they use it for? The money actually goes to the resettlement agency. It doesn't go into the hand of the refugee. This is for the first 90 days, supporting them in the first 90 days. They'll pay their rent with this. They will, if they have to buy furnishing, unless it comes from the donation, they will do that. If they buy any food for them, any clothing for them, any cost of paying their utilities, also social service cost. Any social worker that takes them around gets paid for it. Their salary comes out of this, right? So the agencies, majority of the time I've seen when the 90 days are over, the agency will give them basically a piece of paper saying all your money was consumed. So 90 days are over. These are the social agencies that can help you if you need them, but there's no money left over for you. Majority of the time I hear that, that they don't get a whole lot of cash left over from what was given by the government as the initial fund to resettle them. They do get, so legally, they can legally work. You see, the next topic is, can they legally work? Yes, immediately as they come, they get their employment authorization. There's no lag. They try to get it to them as soon as possible. So they want these people employed. The government want these people to stand on their own 2 feet. So yes, a lot of these agencies have specialized people that work with industries, and the industries are ready to hire them. Sometimes it's like, there's a large Somali population that works in chicken plants, those factories, like, what is that big, you guys know the chicken place that sells a lot of, chicken.
Tyson.
Tyson, yes. The Tyson chicken hires a lot of refugees. And then, sometimes they don't even need to learn the language because their supervisor is a refugee who's been working there 10 years and is bilingual now. And he will just tell them what to do and what to do on the plant and stuff. And so they hire moms and dads, and 24/7, they have multiple shifts and they work there. Can they become citizens? Yes, they actually are required to apply for a green card. And after a year, they get a green card. And after 5 years of being here, they become citizens. So this is a very important basic information. And just building on this, yes, like I said, we do have 3 settlement agencies, and obviously they've been here more than 2 decades. So we have populations of refugees from many different countries that are represented in the Kansas City area. Some of them have done really well. They own their own small businesses, like their grocery stores or their restaurants, or some kind of transportation service. Some of these people have done actually excellent, and even bought their houses and stuff. Yeah, that's basically about the refugees. And bringing it down to who we are as KC for Refugees. When the Kansas City, I've been here a long time, and I love helping people. And through my desire to help people, although I live in, this segregated city, I live in a different part of the city, 45 minutes away from me, either on the Kansas side or on the Missouri side is where most of these refugees live. And through my work, I was honored and blessed to be invited one time to meet some refugee families. When I was doing some outreach work and dropping off my donations, they said, why don't you help the refugees? I'm like, really? Are there refugees in Kansas City? They said, yeah. Oh, there are tons of them. Let me take you and help visit these families. I said, can I bring some stuff with me? I called a couple of friends. We all got super excited. So 3 SUVs full. We texted our friends and we got, what kind of stuff should we take? Let's take toys. Let's take bed sheets and pots and pans, whatever we could think of, We just filled up 3 SUVs with boxes of stuff and went and visited about 10 families in 2 or 3 days. And, the rest is history. I could not get, those people were so beautiful. It just touched my heart. And I felt like this chill in my body. I'm like, oh my God, why have I not been doing this before? So after doing this for a while, just visiting them, if somebody would ask for something, a TV, I would get excited. Oh, I can get a TV. And noticing that if I would post it on Facebook, within 60 seconds, I would get like 6 or 7 people wanting to donate that item, because I stayed mostly with just donation of items in the beginning. I wasn't asking people for money. And so our desire was only to, whatever we had extra in our houses to share with these families. So people could easily go in their kitchen or open up a shelf and take out, or their closet and pack up a few clothes. If I said, I need a 10-year-old boy's clothes, somebody with a 12-year-old boy will say, hey, I have clothes, I can give you stuff. And when they would see, I said, just wash them, pack them nicely, let them look nicely, and don't make sure things are like in good condition. So when Syrian refugee families arrived, I was actually asked by the director of Della Lamb if I wanted to support a family because they were concerned if this could become like a political retaliation. You guys probably remember a few years ago, before Syrians started coming, people were like, oh, they are terrorists and this and that. So she was afraid to get the family. So she asked me if I could find my friends in my support circle to support this family. And once I did that, I said, sure, whatever it takes. She said, it might require $1,000, even cash. I said, how much? She said, $1,000 a month. And in my head, being the kind of fundraising person I am, I'm like, I need 10 families to commit for $100 a month for 1 year. I think I could achieve, because, I have a lot of friends who are very successful, business owners, physicians and stuff. I'm like, I can find 10 people. And if not, I make enough money that, I can just give $1,000 a month to this family. Why not? And so once I did that and I saw the family, I saw those kids, I went to the airport, I noticed that there's a lot of love in this community, and people were so enthusiastic to help that if they had just had a nonprofit platform through which they could actually do this ongoing basis, I think that would help both our community and the refugees, and actually bring a loving relationship for these newcomers in our community, and make our community more accepting and caring and a happy place, right? Happily ever after. I'm that kind of a person. I don't know. I just think that people have, if you just tell them, if you just talk to them, everybody has some good inside. And so I ended up making this platform reluctantly after a year, after we got thousands of dollars worth of donation, and I couldn't give people tax receipt. I said, well, better make it a nonprofit. So I applied and got accepted, and we made it a nonprofit. And from washer dryers to TVs to old laptops to bicycles to baby stuff, because a lot of these refugees are young people, they get pregnant and then they have babies and they have nothing. So I call, and then some mom will immediately, hey, I got everything in my storage. Just what do you need? Tell me. And those moms are so happy. They cannot afford $500, $600, $700 worth of, these things can be really expensive, a crib and a car seat and a bouncer and this and that. So we do baby showers. And then now we do this hygiene drive once a month. We realize that until you're on food stamps, you don't know what food stamps are and what can you buy and cannot buy. So a lot of time these people don't have any cash left over after they have a paycheck from their, below minimum wage kind of jobs. They pay the rent, $1,100, $1,200. If it's a big family, between rent and utilities, $1,500 is gone. And then maybe a copay for somebody's medicine and something. They say we don't even have $1 to buy a bar of soap at the end of paying our utility and bills and copays and stuff. So hygiene products, something simple like toilet papers and paper towels and dishwashing liquid and cleaning sprays. So we came up with this list and we said, that's something nobody else is doing, because I didn't want to recreate the wheel. I said, if there are food pantries, they don't have food, I'll just connect them to food pantries. So that's been our strategy. Kansas City has so many beautiful organizations, nonprofits, diapers, Happy Bottoms, connect them to Happy Bottoms, make sure they know where the Happy Bottom place is. Bicycles, so many people give bicycles, their organizations, 1-800-bicycle and stuff. So just connected them. Even laptops, you just call people. But hygiene products was something I had to buy, right? So we started doing this, that one organization or a group of friends or Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts will say, I'll pick a month of how many do you need? I said, this is how many I need, but even if you give me 50% of that and bring your kids over before COVID, right? They would pack it, bring it, and then it's done in a parking lot within a couple of hours. The families start coming, beautiful families in their traditional garb, mom and dad and 3 generations. And they come, majority of the time, I can't even speak their language. But just seeing them, giving them hugs, which we can't do anymore with COVID, but just seeing them, saying, how are you doing? And here's my number. If you need anything else, let me know. And handing them, they come once a month. And we give them a big pack of all these things in there. And so this has been something that we decided to do continuously. And in between, we do bike drives, we do laptop drives, we do, winter clothing, jacket drives. So drives are kind of ongoing all year round. And then one thing we really love doing, and if I'm rambling, I'm just trying to cover so much within this time period. Something I've learned that has been really beneficial is connecting mentors with families. So if someone says, I want to get to know a family, these are people who are moved into our community. They need friends. They need people to tell them what is July 4th, what is Thanksgiving, well, if they're not Christian, then what is this Christmas stuff that you guys do around here? So many cool things that we do as Americans, and we take it for granted, and new people from new cultures need to learn. And you will learn that the kids learn English very fast, and they become our translators. So a lot of time you don't even need translators when you go to these families. And amazing Google Translate. They know how to use Google Translate. I know how to use Google Translate. I used to always take people, interpreters with me, but then I realized I don't really need interpreters. They know they either their kid will translate or I'll do Google Translate. So if I can connect a person or a group of friends with a family, it's so nice. They get to know each other. They support each other. They visit them once a month or however much they want. It's a friendship. They can do whatever. And if they need something, they either tell me. I don't expect anything from the mentor, but a lot of time the mentors, they have their group of friends and their Facebook page that they really don't need me. They will find support for them unless there's a glitch and they say, hey, they want to buy a house. I don't know how a refugee qualifies. Can you tell me? And I will do whatever it takes when there's a glitch. But basically, mentorship has been a beautiful program that has brought a lot of churches and group of friends and a group of teachers or whatever it might be close to a family, and they've known each other for years, and they're becoming very close to each other. And there is not just difference in culture, but sometimes there are religious differences. These are Christian families supporting a Muslim family, or a Muslim family supporting a Christian family. So this is really beautiful. And I have seen so much love come out of Kansas City. I don't care what people say about anybody, but this program would not have survived if people's hearts were not this big. Literally, anytime I call out for help on the Facebook page, I say, I need a lawyer, somebody's having issue with the Section 8 housing. Within 60 seconds, I have to say, I found it, I found the person, now stop. Next time, you'll get a chance next time, So I always get excited when I talk about this stuff, and I'm sure you can hear that in my voice. But I will, I think, go ahead and open up for questions now. You guys have any questions, any comments, anything you want to say?
Feel free to throw your questions in the chat if you'd like, or if you'd like to turn on your speakers and ask your question directly, that's great too. I'll get us started, Dr. Khan. Thank you so much for sharing so much amazing information from the national level down to our local level. What does your organization, what is it most in need of, or most often need, I guess? How could people get involved, whether it's donating supplies or getting involved in the mentorship? What does that look like? How do we connect with you?
So basically, the most active, page for us right now, because we're transitioning from a phase of 100% volunteer-run organization with 100% of our donations going to just straight to refugees, to an organization that has realized that the work is big as it is, but it's going to be getting bigger as more refugees start coming. So now we're looking into hiring a full-time executive director, because just volunteers cannot run an organization efficiently. So yes, we will be looking into donations and grant writing. And if anyone's interested in helping us, we want to do that. But currently we are looking for families interested in being mentors, so we can keep a list of that. And as refugee families start coming in, especially the new ones, we can connect the mentors to, we will do like a mentorship training. We are going to be always available. We're going to do mentorship training. And Hygiene Drive, like I said, Hygiene Drive is big. We always need people to pick a month with their social group or something and help us with our Hygiene Drive. We like people to stay connected with us through our Facebook page, because as a sudden need arrives, we just always post it on our Facebook page and say a family is in need of this and this. And the more people that know and more people can spread the word in their social circles is how we get the support for that refugee. During the crisis, we did do a lot of rent help because people were losing their jobs and stuff. And so if we didn't have the money, we would reach out to a church that might have set up a COVID relief fund and say, can you help this family? Or an Islamic center. I know my Islamic center had a big fund for people's rent and utilities. So we were referring people there, or any other organizations, So if there is any organization that is interested in helping refugees and want to partner with us, whether it's a thrift store that says I can give clothing if refugees come here, or whether it's someone who has a talent, like lawyers can say, hey, I can do pro bono once a year or something, a case. Anyone, if a person is interested in doing ESL, these days, most of the refugees, we try to get them laptops and stuff, and they have Wi-Fi. So you don't even have to go to their houses. You could just personally connect with that refugee and over the computer, give them like an hour here and there and just try to teach, especially a mom that has little babies at home. So ESL help, if kids need homework help, if you can do it from home, teach them math and stuff, because a lot of parents are not educated and they cannot help those kids. And we really want at least the next generation to be at a competitive level. So those are some of the ways you can help. And we really urge people to like our Facebook page and, just stay in touch with us through there so we can ask you for any help we might need for a refugee family.
There's so many ways to get involved. That's wonderful. So the Facebook page is KC for Refugees. That's the name of the organization. There's also lots of information posted there. So you talked about different administrations, presidential administrations, changing numbers and setting caps for refugees coming in. What do you think we can expect from the Biden administration? Do we have an idea of what those numbers might look like for 2022 when he first sets his numbers?
So Biden initially was like, I'm not sure if I can increase the number because September is coming up, but he got a really backlash from, especially the Democratic Party. So this is the statement that came out from Biden, the White House, on May 3rd of 2021. And he said that I'm revising the United States annual refugee admission cap to 62,500 for this fiscal year. So you need to pay attention that this is not for the fiscal year that starts September 30th. This is for the fiscal year that was last year of President Trump's administration, when he had done for that, the one that started October of 2020. So he had put a cap at 15,000 and he has revised it to 62. So he is hoping that by September 30th, he will be able to bring, although he knows that it's not going to be logistically possible to bring that many refugees by September 30th. But there are a large number of over 44,000 refugees that have been screened and ready, just waiting to get their tickets at the airport. So the final desire is to reach a goal of 125,000. That's what the agencies are pushing, and us as advocates for the refugees have been pushing the United States government to do, is to slowly get this number eventually to 125. So he did say 62,500 till September 30th of 2021. And then for the coming year, it's going to probably go up higher. Again, with knowing that it may not happen. So that's where we are. I urge all of you to please, time to time, try to call your representatives and let them know that you live in their district, you voted for them. And for some of us, even if you didn't vote for the person, you can still say, I live in your district and I support refugees coming to the greater Kansas City area, and we want you to support any such legislation that might come on your table. And if you know of any such legislation that's coming, we try to post that on our Facebook page also, because advocacy, I am not a political person and I was always afraid to get involved with politicians. So I spoke with one of my friends when I was establishing the organization. He said, how can you even work for a cause without fighting for it? To fight for a cause, it's not a political thing. It's about the cause. It doesn't matter. So as an American, I fight for bringing in refugees, which has been, a noble work that Americans have done for decades, as I showed you under the history of Refugee Resettlement Program. And it has been supported by both Republican and Democratic administrations, because it's a humanitarian work that brings us pride and honor all around the world. And we do it because it's the right thing to do. That's what we do as Americans. So yes, advocacy is a big thing that we do. And we like to ask all our supporters to please continue to advocate at whatever level you can, even if it's in your book club, someone is saying bad stuff about refugees. Now you're educated, you can tell them. And by the way, the refugee crime rate, less than 0.001%. Any population that has the least crime rate is the refugee population. So people saying these are criminals coming in, they need to go check the stats. So I'm sorry if I went some other direction with your question.
No, that's fine. And you had mentioned the extreme vetting process that refugees go to in order to be accepted to the U.S. program. And so on that point, actually, it was a great segue. I wanted to ask you if you know how the U.S. refugee program compares to other countries around the world in terms of numbers and just the way it works. I'm interested to know.
So United States has long been considered the gold standard of refugee resettlement. So I had the privilege of doing a panel with one of the organizations recently when they had two different people one was from Egypt, working for a refugee nonprofit, and one person was from Germany. So the three of us did a Zoom conference and learned from each other about our refugee resettlement programs. And I was super proud of myself as being an American at the end. Because I do know, looking at these, stories of refugees out of different countries, that, say, for example, the countries that have the most amount of refugees, a lot of time although 50% of the refugee are living in urban situations because the camps are so overcrowded and so many diseases, they don't live in camps. But even when they come and live within the urban core of those countries, which are 78%, are going to be in the neighboring countries, they are just never get the citizenship. They don't get any government benefits. They don't get any privileges of healthcare or anything like that. They're always in the below poverty level, and they are struggling. Their kids can hardly register into regular schools because they are for the citizens. But in United States, as I described, once we do accept whatever number of people, we are going to treat them with honor and respect. We're going to provide a structure to get them employment. In Germany, sometimes people go and they're still waiting for their application to even get kids registered in school or to be able to start a job. But here, our program is top notch. It's excellent. Only if we could bring more people in. So we are considered even by the United Nations as the gold standard of refugee resettlement, because we do a really good job. We can do better. I mean, we keep complaining, we should give them a little bit more money, don't charge them back for the tickets, and more than 90 days and blah, blah, blah. But if you look at comparative to a comparison, we do a pretty good job.
Good to hear. Thank you for sharing that. There's some questions that came in the chat, so thank you very much for sharing questions. I'll go through those. There was a pretty specific one earlier in the talk. You'd mentioned after 1948, when I think the first act was passed for refugees following World War II. The question was if most of those refugees were related specifically to the Holocaust, or if it was more generally refugees from the World War II destruction in Europe.
They were more from, my understanding is they were World War II, not just all related to Holocaust. Yeah, definitely.
Another question was, how has COVID impacted? I would think, how has it impacted total numbers coming into the United States, and then also locally, how has it impacted the program that you and other organizations run?
So in the last 4 years in general, because of the administration cutting down the refugee numbers, it has really impacted the framework of refugee resettlement organizations like drastically. They had to let go sometimes of 2/3 of their employees. So even to start bringing up more refugees in America, we don't have the infrastructure right now. The agencies don't have the social workers and stuff. So that was in general for 4 years. In COVID, obviously, you can imagine, because of the COVID issue, although the number was 15,000, we admitted maybe 2,000-3,000 people. because of the COVID, they were so much travel was blocked that we hardly got any refugees during this COVID crisis, very small numbers. And my organization, we re-geared ourselves immediately. We had to rethink our strategy. We used to go to the airport to get the new refugees. Most of our energy was towards the newly arriving families and their needs. But when the family numbers started trickling down, we turned around and focused on the families that were already here and see what were their needs. And they were losing jobs like the rest of the Americans. They still had the language barrier and other things and, financial issues. So we stayed in touch with them. Our hygiene drive never stopped. We recently did multiple COVID vaccination clinics. So education of them, making sure immediately we made sure they were aware what this virus was. The information we transmitted to them in multiple languages through I have a network of community volunteers through which I work. And these volunteers are from within their own group of refugees. So for Burmese, it's going to be a Burmese person I work through. With Somalis, I work through Somali people. With Syrians, I work with a Syrian person that connects with them. So we translated and got the information out to the refugees in different languages so they knew what was going on, how to protect themselves, how to make sure they were wearing a mask. If they need, we also made masks and donated it to them, and made sure they had the hygiene products if they had any questions related to how to keep themselves safe. And there were some populations, just like the rest of the Americans, did an excellent job and stayed safe, and some populations really did a horrendous job, and a lot of them got the COVID and died and all that too. And then when the vaccination time came, we educated them through interpreters on the vaccination, and we collaborated with different organizations that were doing community clinics, and we helped get a ton of refugees vaccinated. A very exciting part. Recently got done with several clinics, and now when the age group expanded to 12, we were able to get a lot of the same families bring their kids over and get them vaccinated. So we had direct access to vaccine pretty much, and vaccine appointments, even in the time when the appointments were hard to get. So that was amazing. And we have another vaccine clinic coming up at my Islamic Center in 10 days. So it's been exciting. I continue to do my part as a physician too. So.
That's great. That's great. Another question had come in. You'd mentioned other organizations in the Kansas City area that help with the refugee program. So Catholic Charities, Della Lamb, and Jewish Vocational Services. The question was, do you ever work directly with them? Does your organization work with those organizations?
So basically, when I first even thought of helping the refugees, I knew that I would go nowhere unless they knew who I was and they were willing to work with me. So even before we announced the organization, me and my other colleagues who co-founded the organization with me, we made appointments with the directors of all these organizations, sat down with them, explained to them first who we were and what our vision was for our organization. We were not, because these organizations, everything is at the end about the dollar sign, right? They need grants, they need money, to run their organization. They don't want any competition. So they don't want anyone to go out there and apply for the same grants that they're applying for, right? So they would not even let you in their door if they think you're a competition. So first I had to go to them and say, I have no desire to ask anybody for money or ask anybody that you're getting money from. I just want to be your support. I just want to bring community to give you what you want. You will guide me. You will tell me what you want me to do. I'm not going to tell you what I want you to do. So then slowly they were like, oh yeah, we'll see. But then when I would say any flyer come out of, say, Catholic Charities, we're doing a winter drive, I would start posting that on my Facebook. I would collect stuff. I would personally fill my car and take it to Catholic Charities. Like, here's the winter stuff you were asking for. I just did a fundraising and I collected the stuff for you. So then they started sharing their needs with me directly, and I would post them. So it took time, but they all know who I am. I've done lots of work with them. We have co-sponsored many events, and we have a very good relationship. I have no desire to get any of the grants that help run their organizations. So we have a good relationship. Yeah.
Thank you. We're almost at time. If there's any other questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Khan, for sharing so many facts tonight and dispelling so many myths around the U.S. Refugee Program, and so many great ways to get involved. June 20th is World Refugee Day, so this is a perfect time to get involved if you're interested. There's lots of ways, it sounds like, to help KC for Refugees. The Facebook page was shared in the chat. We'll be putting this video either on our Facebook or maybe the museum's YouTube page, but there'll be a post next week on our social media with a link to this if you'd like to share this out to others in your friend group and other folks that you know who might like to get involved. So seeing no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.